Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right, so let's head over and talk about some DC stuff. Now, there's a few things here. I could I'd kind of like to get into talking about just where DC is headed as a whole now, because it seems like they've made an abrupt turn. But I wanted to lead in with the Snyder Cut, because I think that is, at least at this point, an enduring legacy and a definitive sort of moment in what they've been doing in film the past 10 years. Taylor, I was going to start with you, but I just wanted to kind of, to me, there's some pros to this. There's clearly a solid, devoted group of people who are really excited about this. Um, and then there's some, there's some cons to it too. It stems from a series of films that weren't overly successful, and I'm concerned where it leaves them in the future. Like, are they kind of broken at this point, that they're doing Snyder Cut, but then they're also doing new stuff? Like, Taylor, how do you see it?
Yeah, all of that. I mean, let's start off. We can talk about the Snyder Cut. If people want to see it, fine, they can see it. I don't have a problem with it being made. I'm not going to subscribe to HBO Max to see it. If there's ever, it's ever on free TV or comes to one of the streaming services I already have, I'll watch it. But Snyder, I'm actually a fan of some of Snyder's work. I like 300. I like Sucker Punch. I think it's a fun movie. But he shouldn't be allowed near superhero properties at all, in my opinion. Uh, I just don't think it's his forte. I don't think he understands. I don't think he likes them, just based on the products he produced. He in Batman vs Superman, which I don't hate any of the DC movies, the current DC movies. I don't hate any of them. But my least favorite is Batman vs Superman, because in that movie, they saved a world that I wouldn't want to live in. Everything was so miserable.
That's an interesting take. What do you guys think?
For me, the story had already been produced. The Snyder Cut, even if you have a couple of changes there, it's Superman 2. Which version do you watch? Like, I don't understand what the priority would be on that. Putting money into it to produce it seems like a complete waste. I'm not even sure that thing turned a profit on its actual release. So sinking more money into it to release further is, I don't know. That seems like a big stretch on something that doesn't have a major impact, particularly when you're trying not to have a connected universe. If you were trying to keep that one stretched on and that had to be your basis, maybe, but it feels like you're trying to force something down that just doesn't need to exist when you produce that.
You know what? You brought up the money too, and Biz, interrupt me if you want to jump in. But you brought up the money, and to me, that I think that's the most surprising part. I was surprised when I read that they were going to spend $30 million to make this cut, because I didn't think that was going to be worth it for them. And then it came out they're spending 70. I'm shocked. I got to tell you, I don't get it. I really don't. Now, I again, to echo Taylor, I'm super happy. I don't want to be like overly negative about this. I am super happy for anybody who really wants to watch this, and they felt that they didn't get the Justice League they really wanted out of it, and they do genuinely love the whole Snyder vision. Great. I really hope you like it. In fact, I hope I hope it's an awesome movie. It's fine. But I don't get spending seven. I don't see it. Like, I was gonna ask that question too. What's your sense? What's everybody's sense on how many people actually want this, and then separately from that, how many people are actually gonna get HBO Max to watch it? Is this worth it for them at all at $70 million price tag?
It can't be. There can't be a return on investment here that was worthwhile.
I don't think so. Biz, what do you think? No.
Uh, it's hard to say because obviously the hardcore Snyder fans are pretty much the guys who brought it out. I'm pretty sure their number is very, very small. And but as for the general population, I reckon there'd be there'd definitely be interest just for curiosity's sake. Um, but as it depends how they're doing it. Like, are you going to pay for it extra for this Snyder version? I mean, the Snyder cut, or is it still just straight up streaming,
I
like
think
the $5 a month or whatever it is?
I think it's straight up streaming. I think the whole point for them doing it. And you brought up Campia earlier. He had a point one time that I thought made a lot of sense. Is basically this comes out of the marketing budget for them for HBO Max, that they were using this to advertise, and they were convinced that enough people were interested in this that they would sign up for HBO Max, not just to get it, but to get their entire product. But this was a tipping point for a lot of people to go ahead and jump into HBO Max. And if you think about it more as an advertising expense, I mean, maybe, but 70 million is a heck of a lot of advertising, man.
That is a lot of money, yeah. And apparently the Snyder Cut was like pretty much complete, but I guess it wasn't.
Right. $7 million complete.
You see, that's something that got to me, because I remember this coming out a year ago, and I assume everybody here remembers the still shot of the finished, or the movie in the can. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Okay, so the still shot came out that Snyder posted, I forget where, of the movie in a can, and the whole idea was that it was complete, it was ready to go, which never made any sense to me. But I think stuff like that is what stoked the fire of the movement, in order that wound up convincing Warner Brothers to go ahead and spend the money on this film. And it kind of feels like a lie to me, but I don't know.
You think they got carrot on a stick all the way to $70 million?
I think they got carrot on a stick all the way to $70 million. I genuinely think Warner Brothers got duped here. That they think that everybody in the world wanted to watch this. I'm not convinced that's what's going on, but I could be wrong. I could be way, way wrong, and I invite anybody who loves the Snyder Cut, when this comes out and it's a rampant success, to come back and laugh at me, because that'll. I mean, it might be way more successful than I'm thinking. I don't think so, though.
I feel like it's an extremely vocal minority. I don't think you're getting nearly the return that they're thinking based off the noise that they're hearing.
I agree. But what about DC in general? Like, how does this play into their new movement? Because I got to tell you, I watched, and I have not been high on DC films, but after they came out with DC Fandom, and I watched the Batman trailer, and actually I watched the Wonder Woman trailer, and we can talk about this later. I am not the biggest fan of the original Wonder Woman, but and the initial sneak peek of Wonder Woman 84, I was also like, I don't know. But I gotta tell you, the Wonder Woman 84 trailer, like, kind of, I was like, wow, okay, they actually might have done something really, really good with this. And then there was something else there I was a little excited about that's kind of slipping my mind now. But overall, I thought what they did at DC Fandom kind of convinced me that they've got a good product of stuff coming out at this point. How does the Snyder Cut play into that? Do you think it's distracting, or do you think it's just part of it? Or I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Well, general moviegoers, that they wouldn't really care about that in terms of where it fits in with the rest of the DC universe.
Okay.
I don't think so. It wouldn't really bother them that much. Like average Joe, like no way. Like, it's like Snyder Cut. This is all DC to him. Like, it doesn't really matter. So yeah, I don't really have that many thoughts on that in terms of how it fits in with the universe. Yeah. I mean, have they announced that? Like, I mean, is it in the same continuity, or like, was it just like a special one-off special thing? Like,
it's a one-off special. So,
like, is it just its own universe, or it won't affect anything else?
No, I don't think it's going to affect anything else, and I don't think anybody expects it to. Yeah, so that kind of leads in, Biz, to something else I was thinking.
I've just had another thought, by the way.
Yeah, go ahead.
In terms of, like, how they showed an image of Darkseid, so I'm presuming that Darkseid will appear in the film. So if they use that in the Snyder Cut, right, and then will that affect Darkseid's use in future DC movies, or?
I don't think, and I was just going to get to this, I don't think DC is all that worried about continuity or connectivity. I think they're perfectly happy having Zack do his own use of Darkseid here, and if they ever wanted to use Darkseid again, they'd just bring him in a different form. I mean, they've done it with Joker 100 times. They've done it with Batman 100 times. I don't think they're at all concerned about that, which leads me to a question. So I've always been a big continuity guy. I absolutely love like a strong, like, just continuity. That being said, I'm a big James Bond fan series, which we talked about before, and they don't have any continuity, which is also okay. They have very little. It's very rough. But where do you guys stand on films needing to be connected versus, like, would you be perfectly happy, like, having, like, the Joker film came out, got rapidly good reception? Is that cool? Is that totally cool with you, or would you rather have these movies have some sort of play with one another? What do you guys think?
I enjoy them both as ideas by themselves. If you're looking for a connected universe, the MCU owns that. They're doing it really well. The best thing DC is doing is branching into their other characters away from the bats and soups option. Like if they could span out, I mean, one of the biggest things Marvel did was make Ant-Man a big hero. Who saw an Ant-Man movie coming when they started making MCU films?
Right.
Like, it would have been number 96 on my list. They made him like number 8. So I think that's the best thing they can do for themselves is branch out like that. And if they need to do that through one-off films to build up some character reputation, then so be it. But I think it's working for them with their fans. And I think the better they make their films, the more it's going to work for them. They could definitely do a little bit to focus on making sure that the individual films capture what they're trying to capture without being a little too far off. I wasn't thrilled with Suicide Squad. I don't think it was universally well renowned after the fact. Like that wasn't a step in the right direction in that way, but it was at least a risk outside of the box, and I think that's where they're working now.
But what about something like Shazam, though? Like that's a film that people really get behind. In fact, I haven't heard a negative word about it, really. I mean, people seem to be really positive about it, but it didn't do that well at the box office. So is that not a case of a film that would have benefited strongly by having something to do with what else was going on?
It is. It's less successful than if you have a connected universe. A connected universe makes you want to see the next thing and connect all the dots. Without it, it's whether or not you want to see that film.
But so Taylor Abyss, like, what do you guys like? How do you guys value connectivity? Do you really care at all? Does like watching the next film, having any connection like add value to you, or do you just not really worry about it that much?
Well, I'm like you, man. I'm a big James Bond fan. I love it, and like I said, there's no continuity there. I think when it's done and it's done well, it's great. It adds a lot. It adds dimension to the whole. If it's done and it's done well, but doing it well is not easy, as we've seen many try at this point and not executed it very well. So I think DC is kind of coming to grips with that they're not gonna, or at least not in the foreseeable future, not gonna be able to do it as well as Marvel does it. So instead, they're starting to focus on the other characters, which good. They've had other characters for decades, and they've never focused on them.
Right.
At least some of them are getting their chance. And if down the road there's the occasional crossover, that'd be cool. But you asked if they're gonna treat the Snyder Cut as canon. I'm not sure they're gonna treat the theatrical cut as canon of Justice League. I think they've said that's done. We're done with that. Let's do some other stuff now. See what happens.
A question I was thinking about earlier. So, with what happened to Justice League, the theatrical cut, who's responsible? Seriously, who would you point to? Because I've got an idea. But like, so
I'm just gonna say Warner is responsible.
Warner.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah,
to me,
too many chiefs. It's just too many people all trying to take control, and you get yanked in 18 directions, and then you don't have a film that makes any sense anymore.
There's not a commitment. There's not somebody that's like committing to that direction.
Right.
Right. Taylor, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it appears that when Snyder couldn't finish the film, someone in charge said, "Just get this thing done as soon as possible. Bring in somebody to finish it and get it out." I'm sure they had a deadline. They had a date. They wanted this thing out and in theaters, and we all saw the result. It wasn't great.
I think it's going to be really interesting if the Snyder Cut comes out. It's somehow like wraps everything up in some fantastic way. Everybody thinks it's a great film. I think that would be an interesting position for them to be in. It'd give them some sort of like kind of victory after the kind of steadily rolling. I want to say disasters. I'm just going to say disasters because they had a number of stumbling blocks to getting to that. But it'd be really cool if they sort of finished on a high note. I think anyway. And I wasn't a big fan of the series, but I think it'd be cool if they ended with somewhat of a high note. Let's see.
I'm sorry. I think it was worse than just the too much leadership thing. I think they had too many ideas that they wanted to achieve without a single organizer. Like, you have to have that overall vision to make the story sync together, and I don't think they ever had that. I think they just had too many pieces they wanted to add in without ever reaching for it.
Is it the same thing that's happened sort of to the sequel series, at least with not having a Is it the same thing, or is it a little different? Sequel series in Star Wars, I should say.
I think it's different. Yeah. Because
Okay.
the thing is with DC, like they try to make Jeff Johns work like to be their like Kevin Feige of the DC film division, but that didn't work. Like he only was there temporarily, and apparently he had some problems, I think, with the management of the whole system. And then with Star Wars, Kathleen Kennedy, like no, she was just in charge like from the get-go. I'm not sure what's going on there.
Yeah, I don't either. That one always surprised me that they didn't have an overall vision. When people first started talking about the second one coming out and that it was being like it was just being written completely independently, I didn't even believe it. I couldn't believe that would really happen. But I don't know. I would think you'd have an overall plan for these things. But either way, go ahead.
I'm sorry. That one actually felt to me, particularly as it got further in, it felt like they were writing the story based off of the internet polling off the top 3 things people wanted to see happen from the next film. Like it just seemed like they kept slapping together more stuff off of fan desire rather than designed story, and you kind of fall apart when you try to service too many people at once.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree. All right. I guess let's shift gears a little bit here. We're going to talk about diversification in the MCU. That's what I